Let's begin. So we'll connect, foreground our deep breath, aligning skull bones over sit bones. So we're going to start off today with Kapalabhati. Kapalabhati, short, sharp exhalations. We'll do about 40, just a really brief round of 40 or 50. And then we'll pause and we'll change techniques. So 40 or 50 pumps Kapalabhati. Here we begin. And when we pause, deep inhalation, and we'll hold about a 15 count, give or take, about 15 count hold. When we need to exhale, about a 10 count exhale. Thereafter, resume Ujjayi breath. We're going to repeat that whole structure, so about 40 or 50 pumps Kapalabhati. Inhale, hold 15, out 10, and then resume Ujjayi. I'll talk us through the whole thing. We'll start with a 40 to 50 pumps Kapalabhati. When you're ready, we'll begin. And then inhale till you feel full. Hold, we'll hold about 15. And intentionally absorb breath. So there's a transfer of breath from being an environmental air current to something that is in our cells and in our body and in our core. Before exhaling it for 10. Resume Ujjayi breaths. The way these different gases show up in our blood are helping determine just how open or closed or how the vessel walls ought to move and conduct blood. So the gas, the chemistry is a signal. So maybe you can feel in your body just how various tubes are open, permitting fluid flow in your body. Okay, so we're going to do it a third time, a last time. And this one will be at your own pace, your own count. So Kapalabhati, 40 or 50 pumps. Inhale, hold, 15. Out, 10. And then we'll take it from there. So let's begin the last round. And if you are done, just resume your Ujjayi breath. Starting to feel that both the breath and there's a intimate linkage, breath, blood. So one of those first interfacings, the physical breath, the environmental breath, is in the fluid of our body, blood. One of the first places we can start to have effect is our blood and our blood tubes. All right, we're going to set the right leg out. I'm folding my left knee, bringing heel beside hip. If that's bothersome to the knee, just switch the position of your foot. And I'm using my thigh bones as a way to measure midpoint. This will be a fold. Okay, so I'm not folding over my right leg, I'm just folding between thighs. Hands to ground. And then working with the Ujjayi breath, as we're exhaling with the those abdominals, those low abdominal muscles, we're getting to not have to constrict the chest muscles or harden the chest muscles. So just try that on as a practice. Emptying with the low belly muscles and feeling how much softer the chest or the heart area can remain. We'll give it a few more breaths here. And then inhaling, we'll walk our way up. And we'll switch sides, so we'll straighten out the left leg. And then widening apart the knees. I've got my foot behind my hip. You could have your foot in front of your pelvis and just using the midway between the thighs to determine which direction I'll fold torso. Letting that deep breath start to reflect in the low abdomen and the pelvic bones, the pelvic floor. And inhale, we'll walk our way back. Unfold the legs. And when we lie back, let's ensure we have a roll or a block nearby. We'll start with elbow to knee, and we'll get around to that prop momentarily. So with the feet off the ground, and the hands supporting the back of the head, feeling the back of the brain. Inhale the head and the shoulders up. So still a specific breath into the lower torso and the low back. And feel where the tip of the tailbone is. For some of us, it'll be interesting to shift the tailbone up. And for others of us, we may have to leave that piece alone. Exhale. Left leg out reaches. Spreading the foot bones. And then draw the belly in, draw down. The ribs do move in. Inhale, bending the left knee. Shift the tailbone, exhale, right leg out reaches. But we're getting specific that the ribs are moving in with the low belly help. So I'm not using my chest muscles to squeeze breath or squeeze the heart. It's the low belly. Inhale, bend the right knee. All right, let's do 4 more on each side. You're all well familiar, so we'll just do those together on our own. The more deeply you're gathering the belly muscles, inward, downward, the more you may find that lifting the torso up actually helps empty. Right? So the more deeply the belly muscles move in, the more lifting tends to help that movement. Or to put it another way, the more you're exhaling, trying to arch your back down to the ground, the less connection you may feel to your abdominals. So another function as I see it, this is my interpretation, how to use these abdominals is to decouple the efforts of the chest from the efforts of the abdomen in the breathing process. And in that decoupling and choosing to breathe with to exhale through the lower abdominal muscles with those, it can be a lot softer around the lungs and the heart. All right, looks like we're complete there. Grab your prop. We'll put it between legs. And with legs skyward, this will be the last one. Inhale into low belly, low back. Squeeze the object, shift the tailbone. Exhale the head and the shoulder blades off the ground. Again, focusing on the low belly muscles, getting them to move. Lifting the ribs up to accommodate, so you can actually draw and exhale thoroughly. Pull the low belly down. Inhale, allow head back down as you're relaxing the leg efforts. Squeeze the object. Exhale, the head, the shoulder blades up. Those low belly muscles lead, and the ribs are just following along, following the abdomen as it sinks down. Inhale, head down. How about we do 4 more, independently but together? So help yourself to 4 more. So in one sense, the lifting up of the head is just promoting the movement of the ribs so that we can more fully exhale. So generally when we're exhaling, the ribs are moving more closely together, downward, like toward the navel, and inward toward the core. And so by lifting our head up, we're just promoting the remembering of that movement. I'm saying remembering because sometimes our breathing starts to occur in a narrower window of movement than our capability. We might only partially exhale. Given enough time and repetitions, those partial movements start to forget how to more thoroughly exhale. I'm just using exhale as an example because it's seems pretty observable here in our abdominals. So that thor, the ribs getting moved back together. You can feel the small, I'd say diminishing, but there's a gesture of getting everything out, an almost small making gesture. Let's set up for dolphin. So it looks like we're done there. We'll bend knees, turn over. And moving on, exhale. We'll press the knees off the ground. And try it out here. So the exhale that gathers the ribs back together, kind of draws them inward toward each other. draws them downward from chin toward hips. Feel that motion here in dolphin. This is another wonderful place to, I'll say, restore the full excursion of exhale. Often we'll flare the ribs here to gain some maybe a form of support. And so by leaving those bottom ribs near the sternum kind of flared out, you'll feel how it prevents us from fully exhaling. The wrapping of the shoulders, the unflaring of those front ribs will help you explore a more complete exhalation. So let's just give it three more breaths. Those front ribs unflared, which allows us to wrap. They work together. When I flare my front ribs, it's hard to wrap or move the shoulder blades round. There's a whole relationship there. Ribs, shoulder blades, pelvis. Once we've set our knees down, presuming they're comfy, we'll inhale and we'll step the right foot forward for nomads. So I'm leaving the left knee down. Just taking a fold. For me, the fold is more about the hinge at the hip and just feeling into the back of the leg more so than trying to bend the spine. So I'm using some blocks, inhaling, expanding the sides and the back of the ribs. And exhaling, releasing between the skull and the shoulders. And then inhaling, we'll draw that right foot back. Easy twisting lunge. So leaving the left hand down, exhale the right arm to the sky. And as you're lifting the right arm up, turning through the chest. And we can be discriminating that the turn is coming through the ribs, which is different than the turn going through the low back. So we can be discriminating how that turn occurs through our bones and our joints. So biasing the ribs with the turn more so then the low back. I find I need just a teeny tiny dose of that abdominal knitting to bring that bias through the chest wall and the lung area. Inhale, bring the right hand down. Exhaling, we'll step the right foot back, lowering to the ground. It's perfectly fine to lower from the knees. We'll pause here, working shoulder shrugs. So getting those shoulder blade muscles, those back muscles, kind of tuned up a bit. Thumbs beside the collarbone. Inhale. And tailbone shifts down, the hands, elbows lift up. Exhale, squeeze tops of shoulders and then let up. Middle parts of shoulder blades, then let up. Bottom tips of shoulder blades, and then let up. Inhale, we'll do again. And exhale, tops of shoulders squeeze, let up. Bottom tips of shoulder blades squeeze, let up. Oops, I said bottom tips. You got it. We'll do one more. Third round, last round. Inhale. And exhale, squeeze tops of blades, let up. Middle parts of blades, let up. And then bottom tips of blades, let up. So the ground can really help us learn about that rib flare in the front. Inhale, hands under chest. Exhale, downward dog. And just to be clear, I'm not trying to manufacture like a bandage or a brace around the front ribs, but really just trying to direct and introduce movement elsewhere but that one place. It's a very common kind of letting out place. Downward dog also. So you can get a feel for the backs of the ribs moving more or less than the front of the ribs. Just that we're getting skilled in delivering and feeling our breath go anywhere. And it's not just relegated to our just one area. Nomad's pose. Inhale, step the left foot forward. We'll set the right knee down. And Nomads is straightening the left leg. I'm using blocks. And exhaling into the fold. So this is one of those folds where if I send the sole of my foot toward the ground, it's possible you'll start to get into the top of the foot and the shin. There's a lot of ligamenture there. We'll practice it here in the fold. Articulate those low belly muscles with the next 3 exhales. Whereas it would be easy just to kind of hang my body weight over my lower organs. We might instead just practice moving, articulating, drawing the low belly muscles in, Letting the fold help us exhale the ribs, unflare the front of the ribs, and thus kind of broadening and moving the back side of the ribs, the shoulder blade area of the ribs. And then bending that knee, inhale, backing our hips up over the right knee. With the right hand down, exhale, we'll raise the left. And I'm going to keep calling for it. Instead of unflaring the ribs in front, which would just put a bend in my low back, instead of that, I'm going to keep unflaring those front ribs and turn through that musculature and the joints that are more like my shoulder blade stuff, the upper back, the chest area, the mid back. And maybe you'll find that's a different way of supporting our low back and turning. This is really helpful if you find that twists start to feel just kind of dry and bleh in the low back. This could be a really helpful way of supporting some new movement options. And inhale, bring that left hand down to the ground. Exhaling, chaturanga. So we're going to try it out. So maybe you can feel the low ribs on the ground, maybe. I'm going to shift the tailbone down. Inhale with the hands, pull. Kind of flaring, lifting and spreading the upper ribs, moving the upper back away from the mid back. So you can move the ribs quite a bit. Exhaling, we'll lower down while keeping some of those front ribs still touching the ground. Inhale, hands under chest. And exhale, downward dog. We're going to get into some leggy territory. So, half moon, inhale the right foot forward. I'm grabbing my blocks. I'm going to let us know right now it's going to be a half moon and a vertical splits together coming up. So let's start with a half moon. If you want to think of this as a half cobra, we could certainly play with it as such. We're in the left side of our body is doing cobra. Reaching that leg back, the tailbone follows the left heel. And then inhaling, lengthening the lower guts away from the left thigh, which lengthens the low back. And you can start to articulate the chest forward. All that without having to flare the ribs forward. How do I know if I'm flaring my ribs forward? Here's a really simple test. As you're inhaling, feel your breath on the back side ribs. So for me, the medicine move of unflaring the ribs has to do with not stifling energy and movement in the mid-back. So if I can feel breath in that mid-spine, generally there's more freedom in those ribs to breathe. All right, vertical splits. So I'm going to make a move from half moon to vertical splits. If you have any concerns, hip socket or sacrum, you may want to set the left foot down, adjust pelvis, and then re-enter. So I'm just going to kind of weight shift, turn the pelvis. So now vertical splits, the pelvis faces much more the ground or maybe even the wall behind you. With the hands down on surface, reach elbows, wrap shoulders. And with the wrap of the shoulders, I'm going to say it, is that unflaring the front ribs. How do I know? Breathe into the mid-spine. Release the neck. Often if I'm lifting my head, I'm flaring my ribs. There's just some broad stroke patterns. They tend to collect together. So, yeah, not a specific cue for a certain person, but just general patterns. Inhale, we'll set that left foot down for chaturanga. Exhaling the hands to the ground, stepping the right foot back. Inhale, upward dog. Exhaling, downward dog. Half moon. Inhale the left foot forward. Exhaling the right leg straight back away from the trunk, away from the head, the brain. So you can use that reach of right leg to decongest the joints near the brain. Reach that leg and decongest the upper back joints, the guts. There you go. So yesterday some of us were exploring how the limbs, a great pertinence and influence to the organs and the torso. Today we're just exploring that through the lower limb, how the reach of the limb gives us great access to the torso and the organs. Here's the vertical split move. So inhaling, if you're turning, just bringing that right hand down, turning the pelvis, turning on that left hip. And then for some of us, we may need to put it down, reset, re-enter. Inhale the right foot down. Exhaling chaturanga, setting hands to ground, stepping left foot back. Inhale, upward dog. Exhaling, downward dog. Releasing weight of head. All right. Now, when you inhale, step any foot you like forward. We're moving into splits. So, our splits can be just as soft of an approach as just widening the legs and placing the hands down on the ground, releasing the head down. So it can be as gentle on the groin as a fold legs wide. It can be as intense as widening the legs further and further apart. So I'm going to give you some moments to decide how you want to explore splits. Actually, I think I'm going to start with a fold or a hang first. So we have plenty of moments. And we still have time, so if you're wanting to walk it out a little further or shallower, let's say we'll give ourselves 4 or 5 more breaths in this straddle or split place. You do not have to go in the deepest, furthest splits stretch feeling. There have been certain times where I won't go far into the splits, but I'll let my feet work to hold and support me in a really wide place. You can do a lot of great foot and ankle strengthening by not going as far into the split stretch. I think that's really valuable, especially if you've sprained or got a swollen ankle. It takes really, really strong feet to keep you supported in those wide places. I love that for us. All right, and then gathering the feet toward each other. So I'm really enjoying the backside today. I would love to get into a shoulder stand. So if you're not doing shoulder stand today, there's various folds on the wall or vertical splits on the wall that we could do in lieu of that. Okay. But let's presume we're doing shoulder stand. We'll lie back. Remembering also, you could do this as bridge on the wall. It's a fantastic support system. It's kind of walking the feet up the wall. I'm going to just talk through shoulder stand. So we'll bring the feet up, and with the triceps down, bringing the hips up. And then resting the low back, the pelvis in the hands. So gradually, the hands can walk from the low back to the mid back, which will quite a bit change the pressures and the curve of where you're feeling the fold of this. If you feel like you needed some lunge today, you can separate your legs forward and backward. It's kind of a different way of getting into the deeper front of hip. I really like it as a lunge alternate. For me, it really helps me zero in on where that psoas attaches to the thigh bone. So for me, it's a really cool study in feeling that part of the bone and into the femur. And bringing the legs back together, I'm going to begin a descent. I'm kind of just lowering into a fold. Then I'll lower from fold to Shavasana. And when you're resting in Shavasana, allow your breathing to kind of give up the technique so that just breathing occurs. And feeling how the spine and the bones respond to breath. I'm using the bones here because they're nice landmarks. They're fairly easy to picture and feel. And a little bit like a boat in water, they're these nice solid objects that we may be able to spot kind of undulating in each breath tide. It's just creates a nice contrast to feel breath, body. And when you're ready, bend knees. Turn to a side. Press your way up. It's great to be with you. Namaste. Love y'all.